Welcome to the MSDW podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at MS Dynamics World. Marketing automation success starts with strategy and comes to life through execution. On this episode, sponsored by emfluence, we are breaking down how CMOs, marketing directors, and managers align vision with action. My guest is emfluence president and CEO David Cacioppo. He joins to talk about tactical ways to get more out of your marketing technology investments, including steps that marketing teams can take to improve lead management, customer retention, tracking ROI, and more. All right. Well, I am here with Dave Cacioppo. Dave, welcome back to the podcast. Great to have you back so soon. And I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. I know we have a range of sort of marketing tactics to get through and how to use marketing automation to achieve them. I wanted to start just by kind of setting the stage a bit. And we don't have to make this a real philosophical conversation, but there's strategic objectives and there's sort of tactical ways of approaching them, right? And here we're really going into some of the great tactics that I know you know all about and we can really talk about in detail. But can you sort of paint the picture of when marketing automation is on the table for an organization and you typically have hopefully some executive sponsorship and some executive level sort of strategic goals that the company is trying to achieve when it comes to marketing and improving their performance. And then it really comes down to people who need to make that happen. Can you sort of give us the high level view of sort of where different roles sort of fall into that marketing automation execution plan?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me back. Good to be back on with you. And yeah, just kind of dive right in. You have all levels that are involved somewhere in this process of implementing marketing automation in a meaningful way, right? There's the hip shot, we need marketing automation, go buy some marketing automation. And now what? And that's the last place you want to end up. So, you start sort of at, the top of the chain in marketing world, and you got your CMO who's, their job is strategy and vision, right? They're about the long term of your brand. They're about making sure your brand maintains its integrity. And so do they necessarily care about every single detail and how you go about executing marketing automation strategy? They do not, right? They're focused on end results and whether or not they align with the strategy and the vision, knowing that the rest of the team, as you move sort of down the ladder chain of command in terms of the marketing team, need to make the right decisions along the way. And so, sort of next step down is you've got a marketing director that's most likely involved in it. And of course, this is all dependent on the size and scale of your organization. So we're talking about a mid to larger sized organization. You'll have these tiers, but your marketing director is going to be more in charge of executing and managing sort of the operational side of it and ensuring that everything is happening the way that it's supposed to happen. And then you have your marketing manager and your subject matter experts and folks like that who are going to be much more specific about the direct handling of your campaigns, individual tactics and how they're executed. And of course, when it comes down to the SMEs, the subject matter experts, they've got a very niche component, a very niche piece of what they're doing to tactically execute everything. So that goes right on back up to the CMO's vision for what's supposed to be happening in terms of the organization as a whole.
And like you said, you'd hope their strategy, I'm sure you've seen it. There must be some degree of organizations that are shooting from the hip. We need better marketing. Let's bring in some technology. Let's hope it can, support us. But yeah, that all makes sense. And like that last point that you mentioned just before we kind of go any further, I think in addition to brand, there's sort of that image of how a business engages with its customers. And that's very much right there alongside what marketing automation can do, I think. And maybe we'll get into that with some of these points, that it's not just how the public perceives or, the buying community perceives a brand, but sort of how that brand is, how they actually engage with people, or in B2B cases, how they engage with their clients in a meaningful way. Is it meaningful? Is it shallow? Is it looked favorably upon or not? And I think marketing automation, maybe we'll share some examples that can really sort of influence how that is all orchestrated and sort of how different people in the organization even come in contact with either prospects or customers, right?
I think that, if you're looking at it from the outside, it feels like marketing automation is a cheat almost and could depersonalize or de-emphasize the brand. And that is absolutely true if it's used the wrong way, right? But if you've got the vision and the leadership that's behind this, guiding it in the right way, it enhances the brand, right? There are certain things that I don't need to know that a human actually sent me a message. I need to know that an organization set up a process or a procedure or onboarding or something that is meaningful enough for me to be able to engage with their product or service. And I think you look at something like a software product, for example, nobody's going to hold my hand all the way through the adoption and utilization of a product. But what I do need to know is that there's some sort of support for me from the minute I start to engage that helps me through the process and helps me through the process in a way that's easy to understand and makes me respect the efforts behind it, which, endears me towards the brand more.
Right. Great point. Yeah. Let's jump into some of these ideas and points then. I mean, the first one is pretty straightforward, I think, for our listeners: lead management and scoring. Where do you start looking at that?
You got to look at it from the B2B and the B2C side of the equation. And let's just focus on the B2B side of things first. And it's, you've got sales and marketing within which you want alignment, right? So you got your CRM talking to your marketing automation platform, and you got individual humans on the sales side that are they're doing lots of stuff. There's efforts, there's calls, there's emails, there's communication, maybe face-to-face communication. And then you got marketing doing what they can to assist and facilitate that. And you need lots of data back and forth. And so as the leads are fed into a marketing application and data is collected on the marketing side, it's fed back into the sales to the CRM so that the team can then look at it. And so when you look at something like lead scoring, you're looking a lot of times for some sort of combination of all kinds of behavioral activities that either a lead or a current contact has taken. So at its very basic level in terms of marketing automation software, you have somebody clicking on a link in an email or visiting a specific page on a website, maybe forwarding an email or maybe responding to a survey or engaging in a text message thread. And all of these things can be built into a scoring model so that you then have some sense for who to pay attention to, right? Or who is paying attention to you and who maybe not to pay attention to, or who you need to go get the attention of. You're not doing a very good job. So you look at these scoring models and there's a whole bunch of ways to create them. And as an example, we use what we call a high intent scoring model. So someone visiting a pricing page on our website, that's a buying signal, right? Someone visiting a get a demo page is also a buying signal for us. So we weight a visit to those pages very highly. And so those will come to the top of the list when a sales rep is looking at the CRM saying, who do I need to engage with first? Because I've got a whole bunch of people to engage with. Who is the right person to give the most attention to at this time?
Yeah, certainly makes sense. And I guess the one thing I'm thinking about as you explain that is that there's an element of, probably from your perspective, asking maybe the sales team and the marketing team to sort of define or really kind of draw a clear picture for you of sort of what behaviors and what indicators really matter. And then that way you can sort of put some of that into action into the technology.
I think it doesn't just stop at some of that behavioral stuff. Is firmographic information is pretty important too. What kinds of companies are likely to buy from you? Which kinds of companies are easier, faster sales? Which ones make better long-term customers? The easy, fast sale is not always the best customer. Sometimes you get someone who's just incredibly eager to go and you sell to them potentially and they're not a good client fit. And that's not a good place to be. The quick buck never works out well. You need the lifetime value out of the customers. You need the customers to stick around and become, hopefully, ultimately advocates.
All right, great. Shall we move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about syncing sales and marketing data to help with personalization of campaigns. So again, we're kind of, as we talk through these big topics, we're really down into the tactical execution, right? So what are the boots on the ground doing and how are they able to do it so well? And part of it is having a great data relationship with your sales data and your marketing data. And so email is a fantastic medium, right? It's a great way to communicate. Mass emailing the same message to everybody is meh, it's okay. You really need personalization. And so what data comes into a system so that you can personalize? And falling back to our B2B examples here, a marketing team has the capability of deploying a message to all of the individual contacts associated with individual sales reps on their behalf, right? So I can go into marketing automation and send out a message to everybody that's in the sales pipeline from the salesperson. So to do that, you've got the salesperson's first name and last name and their email address that's going into your marketing application, so that one by one, each message gets personalized from the right person going out. And then that's tracked back to the CRM. With that, there's other data that may make sense. So do we know what kinds of interest an individual prospect has expressed, what their interests are, so that we can personalize the content of that message to be aligned with what they're looking at? Most companies don't sell a single thing. They sell a range of services or a range of products. And so if you know what somebody already has or what they're likely to buy again, all those data points can be used. And at this point, it's, I think, arguably harder to get the data in, which is not super hard. You just got to make a data connection, than it is to actually start to use the data in campaigns, because the software is getting sophisticated enough that it makes it easier and easier to personalize those messages. And the more personalized, the more successful. And that's just been proven out time and time again.
I think one, detail of that I've heard come up at different times is that the sales reps also want to know what's been communicated to their prospects, right? So that's sort of another, complexity of it. I don't want to call it a complexity, but a requirement.
Yeah, it's definitely a requirement. What you don't want to do is deploy a bunch of stuff and have your sales team be oblivious, right? You start getting inbound calls about some sort of special offer or something, and they're like, what? That's no good for everybody. So that sales and marketing alignment is absolutely critical in this scenario. And ideally, you're not doing a lot of ad hoc stuff. Hey, it's Thursday. I think I'll send out a message. This is all planned, right? This is all deliberate. We've thought about what we're doing in Q1 this year, and everybody's aligned with, here's the calendar for when these things go out. But also the data gets pushed back into the CRM, right? So that I can see as I go, look up Jason's contact record, because I'm trying to sell something to Jason, that it looks like a marketing message went out on my behalf, or look at a sales message from the marketing team. And I can see that message and understand what it said and tell whether or not Jason engaged with it.
Yeah, you can do this sort of thing at different levels of sophistication, it sounds like. So I know we want to move on, but to me, as you're describing it, I'm thinking like, boy, this is an area where it could be done at a really deep, sophisticated level, or perhaps a slightly less so, a little more generalized, depending on where an organization is at.
I mean, again, the software is not sophisticated enough to do it. And now you have to make sure that you have a manageable strategy, right? An actionable strategy, because you could get way too far down into the weeds with your personalization. But, one of the things we like to coach folks on is being aware of personalization and how it's impacted by the customer journey. So if you take a look at where someone is from awareness to consideration to convert to loyalty to advocacy, your message is different. There's a great tactic for folks is to host online events, right? To get people to an online event, to learn more about what your product or service is. And as you're sending out an invitation for that online event, the invitation I'm sending to someone who has never done business with us before, my language is way different than someone who's been a 10-year customer and I'm just trying to let them know about new features and products, right? I need to talk to them differently. And I can, and it's not that hard. It's, we refer to it as conditional content. So if this person is in this stage of the journey, these are the words and pictures that I'm going to use. If they're in a different stage, it's different words and different pictures, and you segment that as many times as you need to really get to messages that come across meaningfully.
All right. Moving on, talk to me about nurturing stalled or lost deals.
The first point we covered was about lead scoring, and we kind of looked at the positive side of engagement. I was like, hey, lots of great things are happening. They're looking at our pricing, that kind of stuff. But there's the opposite of that too, right? Which is we've been ghosted, right? What is going on here? Or this person was highly engaged, or this group of people was highly engaged. And so one of the things that you can do is you can look at a drop in engagement, or you can see who your least engaged contacts or leads are, and develop strategies around them. So a lot of times, that boils down to your emails may not be getting through, right? Spam filtering is tricky business, or maybe that's just that people have changed jobs, email addresses have not been shut down, that kind of stuff. But there's going to be an inactive segment, and some people just stay dormant for long periods of time until they need you. And they're going to stay on your list for maybe 2 years, and then it's time. Their contract expired or something like that. So understanding what this unengaged is, or what stalled deals are is really important. So you have the data set to do something with that. And part of it is maybe email, but part of it might be a more hands-on approach to going back to the sales team and saying, hey, email's not working here, or email's not getting attention. There are other channels, right? It's not all digital. There's direct mail, there's phone calls, there are, you could be running display ad campaigns to try and get their attention. So there's lots of other channels for looking at these leads that are just stuck, not moving, dormant, however you want to look at them. There's not positive engagement. There's negative or no engagement. And there's ways to get back to that.
It actually reminds me of a story. I think this came up on a recent podcast episode where someone was recounting, this is on the ERP side, I'm pretty sure, but for a financial tool, someone, I think maybe it was at a conference, like was chatting with this vendor representative and said, oh, we first evaluated your solution back in 2014 and now we're ready to buy. And it was like, last year. It just makes me think, that person could have been completely hidden, but like, could that have been someone? In some cases, it would be someone who you have some signal of, some awareness of, but over time, you just don't know what's going on inside their organization, right? And that's maybe extreme.
I can share those stories as well. We've had the same kind of thing happen. It's like, we'll nurture, sometimes a deal gets nurtured for multiple years and, you're hopeful that when the first contract expires, you're in. But if something happens in that process and the contract has to renew, well, you're waiting 12 more months, right? Or, 8 more months before you pick up the conversation. And but what you don't want to do is forget about them. Right. You've got to keep some sort of a record. And it may be that you pause communications for a while, right? So that you're not the annoying person knocking on their door 11 months in advance of a renewal on something, but that when it's 90 days out, that's time to pick back up that conversation.
All right. Well, maybe move on to this next one. And it is really a bit of a departure, a little bit of a different theme here, and that's automating customer onboarding and retention. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the classic case for a CRM user for onboarding is when an opportunity closes as one, especially if it's the first time you're doing business with someone, and that basically takes someone from consideration to convert. And lots of things should be happening there, right? Depending on what your business model is, but there is some sort of an onboarding process that needs to happen. There's a congratulations, we're excited to partner with you. There's hey, your new product will arrive in 7 days. There's all kinds of messaging that can and should be automated and be monitored. So there's trigger points for when things happen. So you're making a major purchase, a home purchase for home goods or something, and you buy online and it gets shipped to you. Well, you're notified right away that it's on the way, and you're updated on a periodic basis as to how close it is to your house, to the point it gets into your house, and maybe you have to have a technician come and do some install stuff. And all this stuff can be triggered by changes in a CRM that map over to a marketing automation suite to help deploy and manage messaging. And so that's typically email or SMS for something like that. But it's the same thing when you're onboarding for a service industry. So someone signs a contract with you, and you're going to be handing off from a sales team to an account management team. And there needs to be a graceful introduction and handoff to that team. And there needs to be some automated considerations to what's the process like from here on out? What can I expect? And I think one of the often missed ones, we do annual check-ins, at the start of the year with all of our clients, and just talk to them about what things are doing and what they're not doing. And one of the ones that I feel gets left on the table far too often is a simple customer satisfaction survey. So that has a place on an ongoing basis, at least once a year, but especially in that onboarding phase where I've got to welcome you. I got to make sure our relationship starts off amazing. And at about 90 days or 60 days or whatever makes business sense, I'm going to send you a survey and say, hey, give me your honest feedback. How's it going? And what do you like? What do you not like? What could we be doing differently? And are you likely to refer us? It's your basic net promoter score. And I feel like it's really pretty low hanging fruit for someone that understands marketing automation to execute on, but I think it doesn't get the attention it deserves. I don't see it executed enough.
It can really have a nice positive or negative, impact on a company's image. These are people who, still are out there in the world and thinking about, their options and what they think of their vendors, right? Or who they do business with.
Yeah. And I think if you're afraid to ask, you have a problem, right?
Okay.
If you're afraid to ask, there is a problem, or you wouldn't be afraid to ask. But if you don't ask, you don't know. right? And that's even, I think, more terrifying, is to be oblivious that something is going wrong that you are unaware of. And it's pretty easy to ask, and it's pretty easy to respond. And sometimes it's harder to fix things than other things, but head in the sand is not the way to go.
Yeah. And I guess, thinking about this from a marketing department's role and responsibility in an organization, I mean, they really can, I could imagine, take a bit of leadership on talking to the rest of an organization, saying, look, these kinds of, like you said, the onboarding and some of these responsibilities might not be their wheelhouse, but they're key to the brand image. They're key to how people perceive us, and trying to, I guess, influence the rest of the organization's approach.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. You think about something like contract renewals and things like that, and it can be a very sterile moment where, hey, here's your DocuSign, sign your DocuSign, or it could be more than that, right? It could be something where, we're checking in to make sure everything is great, right? And it's in an automated fashion. It's a data point in your CRM passed to your marketing automation suite. And what does that communication stream look like? And what does the celebration post-contract renewal look like, right? You don't just like move on as if nothing happened. It's like, that is awesome. You just chose to do business with me again. There's loyalty now established with the brand and the client.
All right. So let's move on to the next point here. And I think this is a great one to maybe really tie up a few of the points that we've already touched on. And that's tracking and measuring marketing ROI.
You're going through a lot of work here, right? You're doing a lot of things. And I think that doing them, on some levels, they are going to work, right? I mean, these tactics do work unless they're really poorly executed, but you want to know how well they worked, because some things are going to be better than others. And sometimes the lift is not worth what comes out on the other side. So maybe you don't have to try as hard to get an adequate result. And so measuring all the way through to ROI becomes really, really important. And it's not a gimme in all circumstances. It's easier in others. If you're doing online e-com, you can easily tie your e-com data back to a dashboard that says, hey, this email campaign went out and it drove this much revenue. That's amazing, right? I have almost real-time feedback for how well things are going. In other things, you might have had a nurture campaign going on for 6-8 months, where data trickles in over time. And it's not the one email campaign, right, that drove the result. You can't tie it to a series of 8 emails. You're going to tie it to multiple different efforts. There's a sales effort. Someone was making phone calls. There were direct emails going on as well. There could have been display advertising. So you get back to the challenge of attribution, which is there's multiple ways to try and look at attribution, but you should pick something and run with it and use it as a baseline for other things. So I think that there's some nice things about CRMs where you can push some email data back into a campaigns entity and start to measure campaign versus campaign for performance, and really get a sense for which dollars are working the hardest for you.
Yeah, and that really speaks to really the role, going back to where we started, perhaps, sort of what some of the roles and responsibilities are in a marketing team, and what are they really responsible for achieving, if you will. And some of these points that you've mentioned really put a fine point on that. They focus on what actually allows you to be effective, if maybe that's the way to put it.
You got the people on the ground, hands on keyboards, doing the work, executing the work, and just lasered in on the results. And they're laddering up to the folks that are sort of operationally managing things, who are laddering up to the vision. Is this ultimately driving what we need to drive, or do we need to regroup and make adjustments?
All right, excellent. That's a great set of 5 points that we've gone over there. Always great having a chance to chat with you about some of these topics. Really appreciate you being here. Is there anything else you wanted to mention before we start to wrap up?
Thank you again for having me on the show. Really appreciate the opportunity. I'll just say, leave this out there. We are super nerds over here for all things CRM and marketing automation and digital marketing. So if anybody's feeling the need to chat or bounce ideas around, you can find us at emfluence.com, and I'm David at Emfluence.
All right. Well, I hope we can do this again soon. Talk about some other marketing automation and CRM related topics. Just thanks again for being here, Dave.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
This has been another episode of the MCW podcast. My thanks once again to David for joining, and this message from Emfluence. Want to learn more about building a marketing automation strategy that works for your entire team? Connect with Emfluence at emfluencemarketingplatform.com to see how the right tools and strategy can drive real results. And that's it for this episode. If you want to get in touch with me, you can send me an email, jason@msdynamicsworld.com. And for all of our updates, please do follow us on LinkedIn. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World, signing off.